Hello, and welcome to Intuitive Journey with Desiree. I am Desiree Holmes Scherini, your host, and thank you for joining me here today. I always like to try to share some ideas that I think will be helpful, as along with interviews. And as you might or might not be familiar with my show, I share both life coaching tips, information on alternative therapies that I am familiar with, as well as interviews, and also some metaphysical or cutting edge information that I come across. So today we're going to be talking about something life coachy, something very hopefully useful to just about anyone, and it's about anxiety. It's about managing anxiety and ways that our brains, just build things up and snowball, or how we can manage that and adjust our thinking, adjust our perceptions so things are not out of control, causing fear and illness. So, anxiety. Let's start with an example of just say anything. So, we all have our anxiety, and anxiety is based on the fear of the unknown for the most part. We have anxiety when we don't know the outcome. Think about it. When have you felt anxious and fearful? Because you don't know. There's a lack of power there. Anxiety comes from a lack of power, a lack of information. It comes from feeling like you don't have control over what's going to happen. Because if you had control, then you'd know exactly what's going to happen. You'd be perfectly calm. But as we all know, life is full of unknowns. Even if we think we know, sometimes things happen we don't know that was going to happen. Of course, we have things where we said, I never expected that, or how was I supposed to know this could happen to me, or I didn't mean for this to happen. It's just a given with life that regardless of how much we like to think we're in control, we're really not. And that's where mindfulness comes in, meaning being in the moment, recognizing that the past and the future are outside of your realm of control, outside of your realm of possibilities. And the more that you can stay and just manage how you are at the moment, the better off you'll be, because the next moment will be the future. And you can gear yourself up for using techniques that help calm you and help you just simply be okay with how you respond to things, even if you don't like how something comes about. Uh, I know I'm going to tend to ramble because I have so many little bits and pieces I'd like to put in here. And I will be getting to a specific thought process that I'd like you to consider using the next time you get a little spun up. But before that, I really do want to have you think about mostly successes. One of the ways you can handle anxiety and fear is to think of successes that you've had in the past. And when things looked like they might not be great, but they turned out okay. Times that you've handled the unexpected in an effective and easy way. And another thing you can consider is taking yourself out of the equation. So when you're feeling anxious or fearful, if you can take yourself out of being the one who's afraid and fearful, and imagine if it were someone else, how you would try to help them respond. What would you say to them? I use that thought process with a lot of things, like about self-care and things like that, because people, all of us, we get stuck in only seeing things out of our worldview and how is it going to affect me? How is it affecting me? How am I feeling about this? And if we take ourselves out of the situation, we could think, well, if this was my friend, how could I help them feel better? What would I say to them? How would I help them point out that, hey, it's not as bad as you think, take a deep breath, go for a walk. If you were your own child, how would you care for yourself? And I've probably mentioned that on a previous episode. How would you care for yourself? How would you talk to yourself? If you were a scared child or a child with anxiety, say you have a kid that's really upset about taking a test and really afraid. They're over, making it bigger than it is. My own son, I remember him getting really, really upset about a grade, and I pointed out to him at the time that, believe me, when you're an adult and you're working or you're in college, nobody's going to care what grade you got on this test, right? You got to zoom back and see everything in perspective. And that's the big thing, is perspective, is how to have the appropriate perspective around what's going on. Now, granted, there are things that are really, really important that may be life or death, that I don't want to say deserve, but understandably get a high level of fear and anxiety. And to that, I would say fear and anxiety still don't help. Fear and anxiety only help in the very beginning when it helps you take action. Fear and anxiety are your body's messengers to say something needs to happen. You need to take some action. Now, identifying what action to take, what steps to take, where you can take action or control events and where you can't, that's where you need to go. So many people stay in the anxiety and fear stage, anxiety and fear and anxiety, and they can't break out, but they're not taking action. So if you find yourself worrying and fearful and anxious about a situation, take a look at what actions can you take. Write things down. 1, 2, 3. What can I possibly do about this? What can I do? Where do I have any power to take action to change this? If you don't have any power, then you got to let it go. Then you can just allow yourself to be calm as much as you can, but being anxious, being afraid, and worrying does not get you anywhere. So that's where you need to learn to go inside, calm yourself, again, using meditation, using breathing, using prayer, using anything to help control your inner world when you cannot control your outer world. And ultimately, your goal would be to control your inner world so that you're responding, not reacting to events around you. If you strengthen that inner world and your inner calm, your inner reserve, then anything will be handled much more smoothly and easily. You'll feel just more in control, even when there's nothing to be controlled, because you will learn to control yourself. So one exercise that I was talking about that you could try to do for yourself or work out with a friend. You could give these questions to your friend, and it's a cognitive behavioral therapeutic approach that helps you break down this big chunk of anxiety or fear into smaller and smaller portions of it, eventually getting to the point of what really matters, what's really behind or the bottom of the pile of every single little worry along the way. So, for example, say someone is worried that they're going to get laid off from their job. Okay, that obviously has significant effects. And this exercise is not to say that anything is trivial. None of it would be trivial, but none of it necessarily should ruin the person's whole life, right? And sometimes someone thinks, if I get laid off, I'm not going to have any money. I won't be able to make my house payment, et cetera, so forth. So we're going to go through a little example here of this exercise. And you could play it with yourself. You could ask someone to write down these things, do your own work through this. And the bottom line is, going through this exercise that I'm about to talk to you about, it will help at least clarify for you what the events might be. And therefore, nothing's a surprise if and when it happens. It will be, yeah, I knew this could happen. Not like, oh, I had no idea, now what do I do? Right? It gives you information. What could happen? And if you are afraid that something's going to change in a certain direction and you go through this exercise, then you know what could happen. And with each of those, you could say, what could I do about that? If that happens, then what power do I have to change that? What choices would I make? And you could have a game plan, so not everything is just unknown, left to the whims of everybody else or everything else. If you're someone who worries and overthinks and has anxiety around things that could happen, this is perfect for you, because then you can write down and have a plan for what if. And then you know you've done what you can, and you can just be prepared, just allow, instead of worrying. Because if you go through this process, you've worked through all the worry, all the anxiety, because you've already thought about it and made your plan. And ultimately, you'll also notice that some of these things are just not that bad, right? So, for example, someone is afraid they're going to get laid off from their job or get fired. And they're anxious, they're afraid, and the question you ask is, okay, so say you get fired. What's so bad about that? And what's so bad about that? Well, I won't have a paycheck. And you just kind of keep going. Okay, so if you don't have a paycheck, what's so bad about that? And this is where solutions start coming in. If I don't have a paycheck, what would happen? Well, I'll have to borrow money from someone, or I'll have to go to unemployment, or I'll have to get welfare, which answers some questions about there's a place to get money. You're not going to be completely moneyless. There are opportunities, right? So they can work through options. They get another job, right? And so say I'd have to get a different job. Okay, what's so bad about that? Well, I might not get as much money. I might not like the people. Okay, so what's so bad about that? Well, if I don't like the people, then I'm stuck in a job. Well, what's so bad about that? Well, if I feel stuck in the job, I might want to quit, etc., so forth, so on. So you just kind of keep going and keep going. Like, I might have to sell my house. What's so bad about that? I'll have to move. What's so bad about that? I might have to move to a different city. What's so bad about that? So as you go on, you can see how this helps that rumination of all the bad things that could happen trickle down to things that maybe the person never even thought about. Maybe you never thought about the options or the alternatives, or even, you might say, opportunities of something that we would call negative happening that might even end up being an open door to something positive. So it will just open up all the windows. It's like, you got your house, all the windows are closed. This could kind of open up all your windows and let fresh new ideas blow through, blow out the anxiety and the fear and the rumination, and let fresh ideas, fresh thought, fresh feelings and emotions around all of the things that could happen come in. So I invite you to consider doing that as an exercise. And again, to change your perceptions around fear. Change your perceptions. If it's given you an opportunity to do something. When you feel fear, it means it's your brain saying you got to do something. But don't stay in fear. You got to take fear, and change that energy either into action outward to what you can do, or action inward into changing fear into something more positive, allowing it to dissipate, taking your time to spend time with your own mind and just relax. As a hypnotherapist, just let it go. Just let it go, because if you can't change it and you can't control it, it's time to just release. Just release. And in previous podcast where I talk about intention setting and the energy associated with that, as long as you're in fear, anxiety, and worry, you are bringing that energy way down here, and it is holding you in this place of fear. And when you allow and let go, and you find an inner peace, when you find calm inside of you through so many exercises that you can do, as well as, say, go to a hypnotherapist, right? Or meditation, or even distraction, reading a good book, watching a movie, pulling yourself away from that fear, anxiety, and worry for a little while to experience freedom from that. Then you open up that energy to flow, and things, honestly, will get lighter and easier and better. Even if the circumstances don't change around your fear, everything will change around you, your emotions, your feelings. So that's my talk. I could probably talk a little longer on it, but I gave you the core of what I wanted to share here. That changing your perceptions, finding ways to, if you can't control it, to go inside and manage your emotions and just allow yourself to feel good regardless of what's going on around you. And don't give it, people will say, why aren't you upset? Because they would be upset. Well, that's a whole nother video, okay? You don't need to respond and react because people expect that out of you. Just chill. Just let it go. Let it go. Other people's opinions on how you should be behaving don't have anything to do with how you should behave. And I want to share that exercise that you can write out for yourself. Talk to yourself, do it with a friend, and dissipate anxiety and fear, while at the same time possibly finding solutions that will work for you along the way if something does actually happen. Thanks for being here, and I hope you appreciate this and use it and really think about it. Have a great evening, great day, great whatever you are experiencing today, and I'll see you next time on Intuitive Journey with Desiree. Bye.